So we have a project. We call it OM Champion Project.
Dans le paquet, il n'est pas signalé en jeu face à Joël Max et ça va être le but d'Aris Wallet. But de Wallet, 1-0 pour l'Olympique de Marseille.
Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of the Marseille View, where we debrief previous Marseille games and mostly the games from the day before. Yesterday's game and the one we're going to talk about today is Marseille against Strasbourg, where Marseille finally found victory after 6 games, I believe, winless against very beatable teams. Marseille won 2-0, goal in the first 5 minutes, and then the second goal came from a penalty from Strootman, knocking it in at this 92nd minute, I believe. So today we're going to run through the usual lineup, so we're just going to go through the general impressions, going line by line, and then since the Ligue 1 seems to be at a historical mediocrity level, we're going to talk a little bit about other teams for once. We're going to talk about the league table and how our rivals, namely Lyon, Lille and Monaco, are doing. And then we might talk about the game ahead. If we've got enough time, we'll talk about PSG Marseille, which is supposed to be the game of the season for Marseille, but it hasn't panned out that way in the last 9 years for Marseille since the last time we actually got a result there. Anyway, so we'll talk about this more in depth when we get to it, but first I'm going to introduce our speakers today. So we've got the classic lineup as well. The first speaker we've got is Ben. How are you, Ben?
Good. Relieved that we won.
Yeah, it's long overdue, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think the performance was that bad either, so we'll talk about that in more detail. But happy overall. After an international break, I'm just happy we won.
Yeah, fair enough, right? And we'll see if the second speaker agrees with Ben. But so the next speaker is Stefan, who took some time away in Scotland to join us on a podcast. How are you doing, Steph?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm much like Ben, to be honest. I'm quite pleased actually after nearly 2 months or something without a win. I'm in quite a good mood for this podcast.
Way.
Right. Okay. Well, I feel like
standards have got that low.
You guys are still traumatized from the Garcia era because it's you guys are very easily satisfied.
Funny you should mention that person because I think we're going to discuss him a bit later on. But anyway.
Yeah, maybe one of the best transfers of the McCall era is a certain manager that we'll talk about maybe later on the show. So talking about the Marseille Strasbourg game, so like I said, Marseille won 2-0. Very push and pull game. Marseille had less possession than Strasbourg at home, but managed to be a lot more clinical with 12 shots, 6 on target, and managed to slot away 2 goals. And within those shots not on target, Marseille hit the bar twice with quite incredible attempts by Radonjic and, unbelievably, Chet Tassar, who found himself in a shooting position and managed to hit the bar. So in terms of general impressions, in terms of what did you feel when you were expecting, what you were expecting when you came into the game and how it panned out, Stefan, what did you think about the game overall?
I thought the performance was actually pretty decent, and I remember the commentators being quite critical actually of Marseille, saying that they didn't think they would be. They kept saying throughout the game they didn't think they'd be surprised if Strasbourg equalised and went on to win the game. But personally, I thought Marseille were quite in control for much of the game. I mean, there was a period late in the first half, and then a period in the second half where we were kind of letting Strasbourg come into the game a little, but we were never really that under pressure. I felt it was quite a secure performance.
Yeah, I agree. It was very much like Strasbourg did have the ball, and they had 53% of the possession, so it shows they had most of the ball. But they were very, very ineffective, and that maybe we can talk about their tactics and stuff. But I feel like the impressions from Marseille fans is due to the fact that we're just scared every time they're in our final third. But when you actually look at the game again, they never looked any dangerous, did they?
No, not at all. And I mean, we should remember though that Strasbourg are bottom of the league and they have a very poor goal scoring record. So it's not really surprising that they weren't that much of a threat going forward. But you know what? There was things about the game that I was quite pleased with. Actually, I was really pleased with some of it, especially in the first half. Some of the passing was really nice from us. You know, in midfield, we just seemed to be distributing the ball a lot better than I've seen us pass the ball around. Probably since I don't know years, we didn't pass the ball around that well when Garcia was the manager at all. I know it wasn't consistent through the whole match, but there was just periods where we just looked really comfortable in moving the ball from player to player, and you know defenders were getting forward. We looked like we were capable of scoring goals, although maybe we weren't clinical as we could have been. But I just think there was lots of positives and certainly like lots of potential there to be to build upon.
Yeah, do you think it was due to the international break or due to the very different lineup that we got? You know, with Kamara coming back, Rongier being in the lineup instead of Sanson, Radonjic finally getting a start, and Sakai playing left back.
I don't know actually. I'm not really sure. I think the breaks probably helped. I think we needed that time off because we'd just been on such a poor run of so many draws, and then that defeat to Amiens. But I think in terms of personnel, I don't know. I think Rongier is kind of starting to look like he will be, a regular in our midfield, and I think he's going to be a good addition as much as he does try to make passes. Maybe sometimes he's been too casual with too ambitious efforts. But I think maybe that helps just having an upgrade in midfield. Maybe not having a Mavi play may have been a good thing as well. And yeah, I don't know. I think maybe time as well, as the season progresses, the players get more comfortable in the manager's system, and they learn to play together in a particular way, and maybe we will start seeing the fruits of whatever's going on in the training and the pre-season. I don't know. I'm very mindful that we've got some really hard games up, so maybe that all kind of sort of fall apart. But yeah, I don't know. It just looked like some things were starting to come together.
Well, that's it. Or that system that you talk about is definitely going to be tested in the next few weeks, isn't it? Ben, what did you think about the game? How? Because when you bear in mind that Strasbourg, like Steph said, are bottom of the league, have not yet scored away from home. Were you scared? Were you scared of this game, or were you quite confident?
I wasn't scared, but I would say that we've seen it over the last few weeks where we've struggled to create chances against teams that are, let's face it, weaker than us, not only on paper but in their league form. But I wasn't worried that we would lose. I was more concerned that we wouldn't win. If you guys get what I mean, I thought it might have turned out to be another Montpellier game, although they're not as good as defending at Montpellier. And they certainly tried to set up the same way as Montpellier, which is probably an 8-1-1 formation, for fuck's sake. we see too much of that in Ligue 1, but yeah. It's what we come to expect when we play teams at the Velodrome. But I agree with Steph. I think that the first half was our best half of football from a contents and creating chances point of view for quite a few games. And yes, our whole analysis of the evening and of the game, you've got to remain measured and remember that it is Strasbourg and they're a pretty weak team. But at the same time, I can only applaud the performance of some of our players. I think Lopez was on really good form in the first half. He picked quite a few key passes. He could have scored towards the end of the first half if he'd have taken a better first touch from that beautiful ball from Benedetto on the counter-attack. But, oh well. Strasbourg were actually so poor they managed to make Radonjic look half decent. So, yeah, you've got to remain measured in your analysis. But I was quite happy with after the first half. I think that quite honestly, we were unlucky to only be 1 goal ahead. We should have had at least the second goal before half time.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of the opposition, like you said, seeing the run of games that we've got in the next few weeks, you'll take any points. You know, whether it's Dijon,
Yeah, you'll take the points,
Amiens.
but you'll take the points, but you'll take the performance as well. And people are being, yes, we're all critical because we expect a lot more from OM because we're OM, but compared to the last few games where we were playing weaker teams and we just didn't create goal-scoring opportunities for any of our players. There were quite a few crosses last night. There were quite a few little triangle combination plays, notably in the first half, where Benedetto and Rongier were playing little one-touch passes to each other and to others. We were trying a lot of ambitious balls in behind. So if you look at the Kalita Kar chance, it goes from a back heel. I think it's from Radonic actually, who just plays him straight through.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
And it's you know that type of play. We haven't seen that so far this season. So again, we've got to remain measured because there's a tough run of games coming up. But if we're capable of winning the points that we should be winning against these teams, then if we perform like that against these teams, we should pick up points.
yeah. Actually, well, you guys mentioned quite a few individual names and individual actions. So I think we'll like jump into the individual performances and line by line. Before we do that, I'll just give you my 2 cents about just the overall game. I think that the game could have looked a whole lot different if we hadn't scored in the first 5 minutes, because like you said, Ben, they were 8-1-1 formation, very, very defensive. But because we were 1-0 up after 3 minutes, they were in a position where we basically gave them the ball and they had to make something, and that translates to them having more possession. But because they're so poor and they have no confidence at the moment because they're bottom of the league, they couldn't physically do anything with the ball. I think that it could have just as easily turned into a Montpellier game where they're just basically parking the bus and then we're just breaking our heads because we're lacking playmakers. So
yeah, but we still created a lot more than we did in. Well, we created lots in the Montpellier game, but I think we had more shots, more actual attempts on goal in this game than we did against Montpellier, and that's credit to our players because even though they did they did sit deep, they did play pretty high up in the first half, especially, as you say, the scenario of the match after scoring so early meant that they actually had to try and equalise. So that gave us, on the break, we caught them out a few times, and we should definitely have scored the second goal before half time, but we didn't. But we created enough to be able to score that second goal, and that's the main difference. Is that we were very clinical. You used the word earlier. We were clinical every time we got the ball. It looked like we were going to create a chance, and that's the big difference compared to the last 3 or 4 games where we've looked very sterile.
I mean, we were clinical up until the last touch, and in that case, we were just terrible. Stefan, so we're going to go line by line. Talk to me about Mandanda. What did you think about him? Anything to write home about?
I don't think he had that much to do, did he? From what I remember, I remember him making 1 or 2 saves. Yeah, he was
there were a
fine.
couple of shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple of shots straight at him, weren't they?
Yeah, and he sort of parried one I remember. Yeah, but I mean, he was fine. He no mistakes or anything, you know.
Yeah, he's starting to get off his line a lot more than he used to. You know.
Yeah, it scares me, but he's not as fat as he used to be. So
It's more dynamic. That's a good thing, Steph. It's more dynamic.
Yeah, but I just don't like him coming out because of how many horror stories. Well, just how many times we've seen him come out and fuck it up. It frightens me every time he comes out. But yeah, he's faster now and. He looks a bit more agile, so yeah. Yeah,
I agree. There's nothing much to say about Mandanda. You know, only 2 shots on target from Strasbourg, and 2 of them were very, very long-range efforts. And apart from that, I think it's quite reassuring. I mean, I agree with you, Stefan. It is quite scary when we have memories of Mandanda coming off his line, but he's doing it quite well this season, and it's quite reassuring for quite a young defence overall. It's quite nice to have the reassurance or the confidence to think that your keeper is right behind you, you know, to take the ball from the air and then just lie on the floor and then give you a breather. So I think it's those little things that you'd say, you know, like 5 out of 10 for Mandanda because he's had nothing to do, but his his leadership and his stance on the field is quite reassuring to see, and I think it's boosting the confidence of our basically 20-year-old centre backs.
Yeah,
I think the only time I mentioned his name was shortly after we scored. There was a bit of a cock-up between him and Chineta Sarr on a through ball, and he came out for it, and Chineta Sarr panicked and cleared it, and that left us a bit exposed because Strasbourg got the ball back pretty quickly, and Mandanda was way off his line. But we were able to close them down. I think Strootman actually went in there and put in a good challenge. But yeah, that's the only sort of little communication thing that to his credit, he's had to work with 5 or 6 different central defender combinations this season. So you would expect there to be a little bit of that will improve over the course of the season, the communication and confidence in his defenders, where if he says he's coming for it, they'll leave it for him. But I think that was the only incident of note that involved him. Apart from that, he was solid as usual.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so moving on to the back four. So we've had Sakai being given another chance at the left back position in spite of Marvi being on the bench. And Marvi finally came in the 88th minute, which probably scared us all to death. And then we had Kamara and Chineta Sarr who plays centre back, but were playing very, very high, I thought, and managed to get quite a few attacking chances. So we can also talk about them being attacking threats. And Bouna Sarr, who's loyal to his usual standard of crossing abilities, who's tried, I think I picked it up 3 times, and it still doesn't manage to beat the first man. Ben,
you really don't like him, do you?
No, I don't. You'll be on your own here, mate, because Stefan hates him as well.
You can hate him.
Well, actually,
I don't like him, but he did all right last night. But again, he was never exposed or never put in a position where he was under threat. So that I think that's my analysis for the whole defence. I don't think we were actually put under threat seriously, apart from probably once on a counter attack where Ayoke made a very poor decision and didn't cut it back to his teammate and went for the shot. I think that because of the poor quality of the opposition, the defence actually was able to perform pretty well. And I will say though that Kamara, apart from his goal, did well. He's it's good to have him back because Perrin put in a shift for the last few weeks, but he's clearly not the same level.
Yeah, you can see
even though
the
he's
difference.
a similar age. But I honestly think that was Chletiko's best performance for us that I've seen so far, because when you see the way he was getting the ball back and some of the passes he was picking up were very good, but some of the runs, when he made that forward run and had that attempt on goal, he would never have done that 6 months ago because he just didn't have the confidence to carry the ball that far out of defence and then continue his run. And I think that's positive that he's had a run of games where he's looked decent. He's not looked great, but he's looked decent. And if he can maintain some of that consistency, we know that we can rely on him later on in the season when there's injuries or suspensions. So that's my analysis. Sakai was all right. He's just carrying at left back. Let's face it, it's not his natural position, and he always tries to come back on his right foot, which is natural, but it's gonna, yes, he will be good defensively, but he will never be good enough going forward in that position. And Sarr, the same. He put in the shift, and the one thing that I do take away from the game for Sarr was when he took too long to play Benedetto in towards the end of the first half, and Benedetto literally lost his shit with him, which is quite rightfully so.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking, to be honest, from him. Stefan, I'll go to you to ask you your opinion on the back line, but before that, Ben, you've actually mentioned quite a few good things about Chineta Sarr and Kamara. Now, Alvaro Gonzalez is going back for the next game. What would you do? Would you keep his back line against PSG, or would you change it up?
Nah, it's got to be Gonzalez and Kamara. It's got to be Gonzalez and Kamara.
Yeah, I think you've got to bring Alvaro Gonzalez, and he's been the best defender in all the games he's played.
But don't you think that's tough from Chineta Sarr, though?
It is, but he's just Chineta Sarr and Kamara together against PSG will make mistakes. whereas Alvaro Gonzalez he seems like a leader, and he literally leads by example. I think he's a good balance to have next to one of the younger guys for a game like that.
I'm going to make a bold.
You just said the
prediction.
opposite. How are you going to say?
No.
Different?
I'm going to make a it's just a statement. Yes, I agree that I want Gonzalez to start, but at the same time, in a game like that where we know it's going to get feisty, especially for our Spanish and South American players, I can see Gonzalez going in a bit too heavy-handed early on and possibly getting sent off. Now, this is one of my potential predictions. It may or may not come true, but. He's the type of character that could get stuck in.
Yeah, but Ben, I'll remind you, as we saw from yesterday's game, red cards just don't exist anymore.
No, but they do for us. We talked about this last time. We will get the two challenges that Strasbourg made towards the end of the game. If that was Chileta, Sarr or Camara, they're getting sent off.
No, but the only explanation I have is that they've decided at the league that red cards is not exist anymore.
It's only for No, it's only for Marseille. If that was one of our players making that challenge at that time of the game, he's getting sent off.
And
No
both, the penalty as well.
Yeah, especially the penalty. But if Gonzalez does that next week in the 15th minute against PSG, he's getting sent off. I can tell you now. I can see it coming.
Yeah.
It's just the way we get fucked by referees. We discussed this last time. We know how it works. So it's double standards, and it will always be that way.
All right, Stefan. Last podcast, you talked about, for the Amiens game, you talked about Sakai. Even though he's a lot better than Marvi defensively, you could see that there was a big difference in terms of attacking threat that he was posing on Amiens defense. Did you feel the same for this game?
Yeah, I don't really remember Sakai attacking in this. Yeah, and I think he doesn't offer the same amount of attacking input as what Amavi does. At least not on the left side. And maybe on the right he's a bit more effective because it's his natural side, so he can run and cross. Whereas he's looking to cut in on the left. I definitely think it's we lose a bit going forward, but that doesn't mean to say I would take him out from the left back position necessarily. And I did when I saw Amavi was coming on as a sub. I was thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, you're protecting the 1-0 victory. Do not bring Amavi on, to defend the last. But yeah, it was fine in the end. So.
And you just knew that as soon as it was coming on, the Strasbourg attacks were just going straight to the left side of our defence. It's a gimmick.
Yeah,
now.
it's just this is the thing about Amavi. Apart from the fact that he has a tendency to make a really calamitous sort of decision or pull tackle or something, but he's often just he bombs forward a lot and then he just gets caught out of position constantly, and he's got the legs to get up and down the pitch, but it's just sometimes his footballing brain's not and there. He should know when he's leaving spaces where when he needs to close it down, and he just leaves himself exposed too much. So yeah,
he forgets to track back. That's exactly it.
Yeah, Steph, I won't even try to ask you what you thought about Bouna Sarr, so I'll move straight to the midfield. And
guys, last thing about defence.
Yeah.
That was Sakai's 100th game for us, guys.
Yeah.
Fair play. He's a free signing. I think he's probably the best free signing we've made in the last. Well, I don't remember the last time we made a free signing, but he's probably one of the best we've made.
Yeah, I'll agree. I have a different feeling to when Germain got his 100th cap. When you're like, really, this guy should never get 100 starting positions for us. But Sakai deserves it. Sakai came from nothing.
Germain has not had 100 games.
No, he's not played the 100 games for him. No, he hasn't. Has he? No,
so.
He joined the year after Sakai. It's not possible.
Yeah, he would be maybe next season, but
I'll make some research.
Yeah, Sakai, fair play to him. He's saying we signed him on a free, and nobody expected much from him when he signed. He's played the 100 games, and he's more positive than negative overall. It has to be said. So fair play to him, and congratulations, and may he continue with us for the long term.
And as a side note, he might be the lone survival of the Chico Lungi era. Their signings.
Oh, it was. Well,
You know,
they
I just
made a good
remember-
signing.
Forgot about that guy.
Chikalungi's
I
best
know.
signing, lads. Way.
It is, because it used to be what?
Who was the Belgian guy? What was his name as well? Remember?
Gunther.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, Gunther Jacob.
Gunther, yeah.
Gunther Jacob. The poor guy was at the club for 3 months. He got burglarised
Twice.
You know, like
Poor guy.
this guy got such a hard time the whole time he was here, right? And I think partly because he was so dull and stuff when he spoke.
And
But
he did
if you
nothing.
look at Yeah, but if you look at the club he was at before, the number of players that came through that team when he was the sporting director, I'm sure it was all guys like Koulibaly,
Steph,
Courtois.
you can't go pissing over Jacob. No, sorry, over Bunassar and like try and build up credit for Jacob, mate. Just
I'm
give
just
it
saying
up.
it's a bit harsh. Maybe like we didn't get a
Give
chance.
it up. Give
Come
it up.
on, like we didn't get a chance to see like what he could.
He did have no money. He did have no money to work with, but still, I mean, I guess Sakai was him. Let's put Sakai down to him, and let's give him credit for that. If the people who burglarised him could give him some of his stuff back for signing Sakai, then that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Let's say look at the players that came through. I think it was Genk when he was sporting director. There's loads of really good players. Leon Bailey, Ndidi, loads of players.
Yeah.
I don't know how responsible he was, but he was at that club at that time. So
As much as I love to reminisce about these brilliant golden eras of Marseille, I think we'll go back to the game. So Strootman had 1 goal, albeit from a penalty, and 1 assist. So he contributed in both of Marseille goals yesterday, and for me had quite a big activity on the pitch. Stefan, what did you think? What did you make out of Strootman's performance?
Just the same as I always say, like I often don't really notice he's actually there doing it because he doesn't really stand out very much, and he's not the most exciting player. He's a bit of a kind of water carrier type. I think we looked more stable in midfield with him in it, to be honest, than when he's not there. You know, I think we saw was it the last game or the game before where we had Lopez, Sanson, and Rongier, and just no one playing that kind of deep number 6 role. Without Strootman, I think we're a lot more porous in midfield. And he's a bit of a level kind of cool head, I think, because of his experience, and he's put it at a high level for a long time. I think he gives a good balance to the midfield. I would prefer someone a bit more athletic, but he'll do, you know.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Twitter responses, saying that, well, we lost to Amiens 3-1 and now he's back and you can see the difference. People seem to forget that he was here for all of the other losses. Ben, what did you think about Strootman? What do you think it was in line with his performance from the season, or did he step it up again a notch?
Well, I was one of the first to say after the Amiens game and the podcast we did that you could tell he was missing, and I will jump on that bandwagon. I agree that he was missing, and our other midfield three, so Rongier, Sanson and Lopez, are too similar in terms of their profile. Strootman is the only slightly defensive-minded midfielder that we have in terms of experience, but also in terms of his style of play, where he let's face it, he cleans up a lot of those loose balls in front of our penalty area. So I thought he did well. It was statistically he had a good game because he scored and he got an assist. But yeah, he's one of those where he's never flamboyant, but he is solid. And I think that last night was the best performance of our midfield so far this season. So wink, Sanson, maybe. You don't have a place unless you step it up, even though I think he's been all right. In terms of compatibility, Rongier and Lopez going forward seem to be very good and have a good influence on our play, but Strootman is a reassuring presence in front of that back four, especially given the lack of experience of not the lack of experience, but the youth of our two centre-backs last night.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good summary of Strootman, to be honest. I have to do my mea culpa because I've been really critical of Strootman. I still am, to be honest. But when he pulls on a performance like this, I mean, besides the actual statistics, the goal and the assist, you could really feel that he was in control of the midfield. When this game could have been a lot more difficult than it was. The fact that he was there stopping all the counterattacks, all the build-up plays really made this game really, really easy for us. And like you said, our backline who didn't have to suffer wave after wave after wave of counterattacks. I agree. So Stefan, we'll split. We actually, for once, I'm not going to talk about a partnership, but I'm going to split the two midfielders each and talk about individually. I'll give you Rongier to talk about. He only got a 5 out of 10 in L'Equipe as a ranking. What do you think of him? Do you think he was better than that?
I really enjoy watching him. Actually, I think on the ball he's a really technically gifted player. I think his footwork's great. I think his passing's brilliant. I think sometimes he tries to pull off, this sensational last pass a lot, and he's clearly got the eye for it, but sometimes just a bit too casual, and maybe needs to keep it more simple. But he's certainly capable of making that final through pass, and I really like what I see of him. I think he's a really interesting player. I just love the way his feet move, with the ball. He's just got such nice control. I think he's far superior to the other two midfielders, that we've got in that mould, Lopez and Sanson.
Well, especially in that formation, you have to compare him to Sanson in this formation, and there seems to be night and day.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, though, a few podcasts ago, Luca, which I very much agree with, Sanson looked a very good player when he came in. He had a number of assists, a number of goals in his first 6 months to a year, and then he's kind of seems to have lost his confidence. I do think Sanson's a good player. I think he's been out of form though for a while, since maybe about a year now. Yeah, I think he was very good autumn last season.
Maybe more.
And no, I think around about this time last season he was really good, and then he got injured, and I think maybe briefly, and then he's been pretty poor since. But I think he's got the ability, and I actually think Sanson and Rongier could work really well together with someone like Strootman behind them. I find Lopez a bit more frustrating. I just feel like Lopez just really hasn't progressed. He runs around a lot, and he can keep it simple and nice and stuff, but he just hasn't developed beyond what he looked like when he first came on the scene, and he's just not capable of scoring goals or making those kind of final balls, assists and stuff. I just think he's too safe, and maybe he's got it in him, but I just don't see it enough from him.
Well, actually, you both have very contrasting views, Ben and Stefan, on Lopez. So we can talk about Lopez now, Ben. Actually, because you mentioned, you said quite a lot of good things about Lopez at the start of the show. What do you think he did well with this game? Because he has faced a lot of criticism. And especially with that interview he's made recently about, saying that his head was already at Barcelona a couple of years ago. What do you think about Lopez?
He's nowhere near Barcelona's beat player level, so sorry.
I agree with that. Look, guys, you only have to listen back to know that I've been one of his most fervent critics. I said this a few weeks ago after the Monaco game, that even though we won, for me, he looks lightweight in that midfield, and I agree with that. And I think he gave the interview yesterday in the CFC where he said that apparently, allegedly, we refused a 15 million offer from Sevilla for him last summer. And, you look at that and you go, Jesus, if we'd have sold him, we maybe could have kept Campos. And how different would our team look now? When you
it wouldn't have looked any different. Let's stop fantasizing about Campos.
I was just winding you up. Luca, I was winding you up. I'm joking.
No, but everyone's really serious about this. People forget Ocampos. Everyone hated Ocampos.
But he's doing well in Spain. He's going for Argentina and stuff.
I'm winding you up, mate. I agree. But look, yesterday was one of his best games. I think he plays better in that advanced position. But if we had a more physical defensive midfielder in behind him, Strootman does the job, but we all agree that we need someone a bit more athletic. If Lopez had that kind of coverage behind him and he was able to get forward like he did last night in the first half, he created shitloads in the first half. He was brilliant. I was very impressed with him. I couldn't believe it was him. I thought it was Rongier half the time, and then I had to actually focus and realise it was Lopez that was pulling off quite a few good passes, combining with the players. I didn't see the statistical analysis, but I think that's probably the most forward passes he's ever played in a game for us. he just looked so assured on the ball, and he was picking up passes left, right, and centre. And with Rongier, they look quite complementary, although Rongier is a step above in ability. I agree with you, Steph. But yeah, if Lopez produces those performances consistently, then we'll see. But my big worry with him is that he'll shine in games like last night against Strasbourg and the sort of Angers and those types of teams. But in the next 4 games, that's where I want to see him at this level, and I'm very worried that he'll fade away or just get bullied off the pitch because he's not athletic enough, and that's not his problem. That's just his style and his build. But if he produces 1 or 2 performances in the next 4 games that were similar to the one last night, he will really go up in my esteem and my excitement about his potential. But I just don't think that's going to happen. In all honesty,
one thing I would add to that, actually, just very quickly, is you talk about his physical deficiencies all the time, but actually yesterday's game, Strasbourg have some pretty big, tough physical players, a lot of height and stuff, and he wasn't actually bullied as off the ball and stuff as we normally see him against.
Yeah, but that was a systemic thing. It's because our backline were able to be confident and play so high up. It means that Streetman was able to push higher and interfere with their midfield, which gave Lopez and Rongier a lot of space in the first half. But in the second half, he definitely faded away. Less than Rongier. Rongier faded a lot more in the second half, I find. And Lopez still was present and picked out a couple of key passes on a couple of counter-attacks. But when we have that confidence and that assurance to step up at the back line and put pressure on the team, on the opposition in midfield, then Lopez will always be more comfortable. But we're not going to be able to do that consistently, let's face it, especially not against bigger teams. But I hope they prove me wrong. I may be wrong.
To give you the closing words, I'll both give you the closing statement on Lopez before we move on to the front 3. It seems that we're going to play with this midfield for at least the foreseeable future, with Rongier, Streetman and Lopez. Now they have a large sample size of Lopez and what he looks like in big games. If Lopez doesn't play well, you can tell me just yes or no. If he doesn't play well against PSG, do you bench him for Sanson for the rest of the big games that's going on this season?
Yes.
No, I disagree. I'd rather give Lopez, who's a minnow of the club and one of our academy products, more credit and more patience than I will Sanson, who is allegedly supposed to be one of our big ticket players that we're hoping to sell 30 or 40 million, for fuck's sake. So I'm expecting a lot more from Sanson if and when he does come back in the team than I am from Lopez. If Lopez can produce something like last night in one of the next 3 games against one of the next 3 big teams, that I'll be happy with that, especially if he kicks on. If he doesn't, then we'll know he's still got to improve. But I will put more pressure on Sanson than on Lopez, personally.
Okay. Now, Radonic got a second chance after his big second half against Amiens last 2 weeks ago now. He got a chance to play again yesterday, and reviews are mixed. I mean, his main highlight is his bar on the volley that he's had and the bar, but he's had a lot of the ball yesterday. He's made some good decisions, some bad as usual. Bit more of a balanced game for Radonic. He seems to at least give us the impression that he's coming out of his shell. Stefan, what did you make out of his game? Now that Payet is coming back, would you keep Radonic on the pitch and try to play him on the right wing instead of Jamin, or would you just bench him again?
Bench him, no doubt about it. I think he had a better game yesterday than what I think I can ever remember seeing of him, or other than the pre-season. Yeah, he looked less. He was less frustrating. I'm not going to say he had a great game, but I think he was less frustrating. He didn't give the ball away as much as, there's poor control didn't let him down as much as it normally does. But I'd still bench him. He's not at that level to be starting against PSG or at any of the big games. I think he's only going to fuck up because that's what he does, isn't it? Yeah. He's not good enough yet.
He still has his frustrating moments where he has the option of passing in, playing it simple, and he just impels himself on the back line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't doubt his technical ability. It's his decision making that is still the most frustrating part of this game.
It's abysmal. It's
His control sometimes lets him down, though. He takes his eye off the ball, and although he's capable of some really sublime moments of, like, technique and stuff, he's also just capable of, like, the poorest touch ever. It's like, I don't know how he can go from being able to control something so well to so poorly in seconds of each other. He's just a bizarre player. I can't make my mind up whether or not he's got a lot of talent or he's just absolutely terrible.
I think his performance last night is just symptomatic of what I said very early on, that guys, this was Strasbourg, and they made him look really good. They did, but he did, fair play to him, he put in a good shift as well.
If he played in Scotland and he was playing against Hibs and stuff every week, he probably would look good.
Yeah, he'd be a great player for Rangers, I'm sure, and him and Morelos would both be getting sent off every week, but it's just, I mean, Strasbourg made him look half decent, and I still don't rate him, but I think that in those games he can have an impact. And I agree with you, Steph. He will not start, but I would much rather Germain start anyway from an experience point of view in the big games. But I still think that maybe he has a part to play in any of the games coming up as an impact. If he comes on for the last 20 minutes, and we're either a goal up or a goal down, and we need to create something, you never know with him. He could produce a moment of random genius and get a cross in, or get a shot on goal that could create a chance for someone else. And that is the pure limit of his contribution, and he's just not good enough for a full 90 minutes against big teams.
If we want to talk about the other topics at the end of the game, so the French table, Garcia at Lyon, and looking a little bit about the PSG game, I think we need to move on a little bit quickly. I do think that it's worthwhile to stop at Benedetto's performance, because there's a lot of controversy again and a lot of mixed reviews about his effectiveness and his intentions. I personally thought that...
So people need to cut the crap. They need to cut the crap. But go ahead.
Do I need to cut the crap?
Well, it depends what you're going to say, mate. Go for it.
All right. I think that, yes, his decision sometimes... I don't know if I can call it selfish. His decision sometimes is sometimes odd. He's quite unpredictable in the fact that he'll shoot when you're not expecting to shoot, and sometimes it fails miserably. But you can't deny that his first touch, his 1-2 ability, and not just his ability, and his potential, but in fact, like yesterday, he did loads of them. The way he tracks back, the way he drops down in the pitch to actually make 1-2s and triangles, I mean, how many players do that in French league? I think it's like, he's a great striker, and even considering yesterday's game, aside from the penalty that he gets, I think it's a top performance.
I agree. I really enjoy him, watching him play. I think he's such an interesting forward. I was really sceptical about him, remember, when we signed him in the summer. I wasn't convinced. I really, really enjoy watching him. I think he's a brilliant player. And even if he fucks up sometimes, or he makes some of the wrong choices, I enjoy watching him. And isn't that what football is about, isn't it? It's about, like, entertainment. So yeah, I don't mind, because he's so enjoyable to watch. I think, like, even Balotelli, I know they're very different kind of players, but he was also a player that would make choices that might seem quite selfish sometimes, but at the same time, he could also pull some things off like that, like efforts and things, or acrobatic scissor kicks and things like that, but or the odd sort of back heel and flick. And I think that's good. That's what we need up front. We need a forward that makes us excited, that does try to do some of the the harder things to do in football. I don't want to see some boring kind of robot forward, like Giroud. Fucking, that's exactly the kind of forward I don't want.
Oh, Jesus, don't criticise your roommate. He's got an amazing goal scoring record. Come on.
No, I'm not a fan. I really like Benedetto. That's the kind of football I want to see. I imagine what he'd be like if Bielsa was still the manager. I think he would get so much out of that player. And it's just a shame that he's like 29, because I wish he was like 5 years younger, because we get to see him get better and better, and adapt into European football.
Agree. I'm not going to repeat it. I agree wholeheartedly. The quality of some of his first touch and his positioning, notably when he tracks back and he comes to get the ball deep. Whenever he always looks to play that risky pass, but it seems to always come off for him. So that's a measure of his quality. But also, I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, we were all worried about him getting booked and suspended. It did happen. And I think very early on he went in for a challenge which was a bit dodgy. I thought he was going to get booked after 10 minutes, and he didn't. And then he went in for a couple more. I think towards the end of the game he went in for a slide tackle, didn't he, against the defender. He won it, and then he got a cross in.
Yeah, that's brilliant, that tackle. I mean, that's what you want to see, isn't it? Like,
exactly.
He completely beats the defender to the tackle and just gets straight on his feet as well.
And to conclude, I think in the first half there was a moment where he slipped, but he still managed to pull off a fucking amazing pass for Germain. And that's something that Radonjic can't even do standing up when he's not being pressed. So let's face it. I mean, we've got a quality technical striker here, and he's probably. I've said it before. He reminds me a lot of Mamadou Niang in terms of his technical ability and his vision. With the right service, which hopefully Payet and eventually Thauvin will provide later on in the season for him, I think he's going to continue to score, and he's going to become a very central part of this team.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think for the sake of talking about other topics, I propose that we skip Germain, because there's literally nothing to talk about him. He's just bang. He's the embodiment of bang average. There's nothing bad, nothing good, and then you come out and you don't even know if he's played.
Yeah, skip.
Yeah, skip. So in terms of the outside of the game news, so I'd like to talk just a few minutes about the league table, where Marseille is now in 4th position, giving you an indication of how poor the Liga is after Marseille hasn't won in 6 games. They find themselves in a 4th spot, 1 point away from the podium. Nantes 2nd, Stade de Reims 3rd, and obviously PSG top. But it's not at the top of the table that I'm looking at, because I expect things to change quite quickly. But it's that Lyon is 1 point away from being bottom. Monaco, even though they're starting to get some points now, they're still 14th. And Lille are just crashing and burning compared to their standard last season, where they've only got 15 points in 10 games and they're at the 8th position.
I think Saint-Etienne as well have won 2 games in a row now, and they've moved up to 10th.
Yeah, what does that inspire you with? Are you confident? I mean, it's a bit of a blessing in disguise, the fact that we can play so poorly and be 4th, but then it kind of tells you like, well, if we had won our 4 games, which are very winnable, we could be top.
Yeah, it's good. It means we don't have to be very good to get into the top positions. It's brilliant for us, isn't it?
Yeah, but how long is that going to last? And I guess we're luckier than we have been in previous seasons, where Lille, for example, last season were just very consistent from the start, and I think that they won their first 6 games or something. They had a really good total of points at this stage last season. But yeah, it's a blessing, but it's also a curse, because it may lead to complacency, and I think it's good for Villas-Boas, because it means that he's not under too much pressure too early. But the perfect example is exactly what you said, Lucas, because we're so close on points. We were 11th before last night's game, and because we won by 2 goals in the end, we go up to 4th, and it is a bit ridiculous in the league like Ligue 1, which you would expect the big teams to dominate and win points like they do in every other league. They're just so inconsistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can go down just as quickly, because we're playing 4 very difficult games, and there's only 6 points away from the relegation spot. So we could
we could be back to 12th in 3 weeks,
if that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so that's it about the league table. Ben, I believe you want to talk about a
Bring on the
particular
big
transfer.
topic.
Yeah,
Bring on
let's
the
talk
big
about it.
topic.
All right,
Yes.
I'll release you, Ben. Go for it. Have your rant.
It's a quick one. No, it's not a quick one. Look, I'll just start off. Guys, this time last year, I think we had just extended Rudy Garcia's contract. We all know what happened after that. We all know what happened before that, notably with a very, yet again, very frustrating under this direction transfer window where we didn't sign a striker, we didn't sign a left back. Last summer, after Garcia left, we fixed the centre forward problem, it would seem, because Benedetto's been very good. I don't think we expected that, but fair play.
Garcia would never have played. I
He would never have signed him. He
Nah,
would never have gone for him.
He would have vetoed that, definitely.
He would never have looked at him.
Because he probably never have heard of him anyway, you know.
Yeah, he'd have, oh, fuck knows what he would have done. But, guys, I just find it, so the only frustrating thing for me about him signing at Lyon is that it would seem that, I think it's happened a few times in the Premier League before where Mourinho's left and other managers have left other medium to big size clubs, and they've said to them, I think they had a clause that if they got sacked and they ended up signing for another team fairly quickly, that would mean we wouldn't pay them off entirely. That would mean the club that they just left would forfeit paying them off for sacking them. Obviously, I would not expect Zero to have that foresight or to do anything.
It's exactly what I thought when he signed as well.
Exactly, yeah. But I have to say, I pissed myself when I saw that appointment because they went for Laurent Blanc, and allegedly Aulas contacted Mourinho first, and just taking a step back and looking at the whole picture of Lyon, because at the end of last season, they seemed to change their strategy a bit, where Aulas seemed to say, I'm going to take a bit of a step back from the sporting side of things, and I'm going to appoint Juninho and give Juninho free rein to run the sporting side of the transfer side. So Juninho brought his man in, who's Silvinho. We all know how that's worked out. It was a clusterfuck. They didn't exactly sign good players, and their squad is pretty thin for saying they're playing Champions League football.
I don't know if I agree with that, but...
Well, no, but look at how it's turned out. Probably not on paper at the time, but look at how it's turned out.
Well, I mean, I would say that I think they signed good replacements for the players they sold, but
They don't have any creative players. They don't have anybody creative in that midfield or up front.
I've got Adelaide, but I would also...
He's not played the single minute.
I would also... He's played a couple of games. I would also say that Silvinho... I mean, he played 9 games in the season. They sacked him. You could say maybe they could have given him a bit more time to see if he could...
Yeah, but that's the difference between us last season when we lost. We didn't win for 10 games, and we kept Garcia. And Lyon have to chop. They took the brave decision to sack him. And I think just the funniest thing is, for once in a long time, Lyon are in a bit of a crisis politically, which is actually quite entertaining and quite refreshing to see, because clearly you would look at Juninho and you would not expect him to go anywhere near Garcia. He would not want someone like Garcia who's going to come in and be a bit conflictual towards him and say, I'm in charge, like he did with Zubi, as we're all assuming. Mm-hmm. And that's so entertaining.
Do you think Aulas is the one that's gone?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Gerard Houllier, behind the scenes, clearly said to Aulas, Laurent Blanc is too much of a big pair of balls for us to manage. We can't be dealing with Laurent Blanc. Go for Garcia. He's the most diplomatic.
Do you think Mourinho would have gone for Laurent Blanc either, though?
I don't think Laurent Blanc wanted the position either.
Well, that's what's coming to light allegedly nowadays. But I just think that Juninho is a puppet. The poor guy is a puppet. Yeah. He's a club legend. He's been humiliated in the space of 2 months because of a management appointment that didn't work out, but also fan pressure and political things going on in the club. And I'm just sitting back with a glass of gin and tonic and seeing this whole bullshit clusterfuck unfold. And I'm actually, for once, I'm thinking, Jesus, for once, it's not OM.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's great, but and to, you know, in response to that, you could say, I mean, what the fuck's our sporting director do? So
yeah, I mean,
well, that's it. That was my 2 cents. I'm just relieved.
Do you think Garcia's going to do well at Lyon, though?
No. No.
I think he'll stabilise them this season, but I don't think next season will just be poor, because I don't see them getting Champions League football for a start. I'm not necessarily saying that we will, but I'm saying that I don't think they will recover enough to be able to do that in their league form, because they've got European football, which will drain them a lot. And we all know how poor he is at European football in the Champions League. He's taken a few beatings with Roma. So I think he'll stabilise them, but I don't think they'll improve enough.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to have. My hope is that they give him a transfer window this summer, and they let him fuck them up like he fucked us up by spending money on stupid players, stupid wages.
This transfer makes no sense, because Lyon is obviously a club that's very, very deeply rooted into their youth academy, and we know how skeptical Garcia is of playing youth players and giving them like full confidence. So he's probably gonna wreck like their young crop, and they're all gonna leave because they don't get any game time. And the thing that makes me so confident that they're not gonna do well is that when you see his post-match conference against Dijon, he has not changed a single bit. His analysis, he's just saying like, oh yeah, if we played this game 9 times out of 10, we would have won it. We should have given more. There's no questioning himself, no questioning his players. It's always the referee's fault, always unlucky, lack of luck, and all that stuff. So he's going to continue like this until he gets sacked.
Okay.
So we don't have much time to talk about PSG.
Back just on what you said, that I was literally almost getting an erection when I saw his post-match interview. It's like, oh, if we played this game 9 more times, we would have won it 9 times out of 10. Well, mate, how many fucking times do you need to play a game to win it, man? Like, we've been hearing this shit for years for months from you, even after we lost and you drew. And it's like, yes, to be fair, I think the keeper got one of the best ratings any goalkeeper's ever had on Mon Petit Gazon. But still, like, fuck's sake, mate, you've not changed one bit. And I'm so happy to see that he hasn't used these last 4 months to question himself and try and improve himself, or think that maybe he's part of the problem. It's the same old Rudy Garcia, and long may it continue, and long may he fuck up Lyon.
Are you guys more excited or nervous that he's coming back to the Velodrome?
I think they'll probably beat us, but you know, I mean, I
can see that
against Lyon and PSG. So.
No, I can see that being a draw now that it's Garcia in charge. But I will tell you one thing though: when you look at all the shit that we gave Valbuena, although the poor guy came from fucking nowhere, won trophies for us, and scored quite a few important goals for us, and the response and welcome he got was to have a puppet of himself being hung in the fucking
was that game?
I just hope that Garcia gets a very, very, very deserved welcome when he comes back to the Velodrome.
Because I think he will though, because Valbuena got that though, because Valbuena was a star player for us for many years.
Yeah, but he went elsewhere.
Nobody liked Garcia, so it's different.
Yeah, but he went elsewhere before going there, and Garcia has basically stolen 10 million from us, signed for our biggest rivals, with the ambition of fucking us over even more, which is hopefully won't happen. But it's the principle of it that Hero, for all his faults, puts way too much faith and defended him, and even Zubi probably had to swallow his pride a few times and pretend they were getting on and pretending they were working closely together, even though they clearly weren't. It's just his whole attitude that he's blatantly taken both of those guys for a big ride. He's fucked both of their reputations over, and he's wasted a large part of that 200 million war chest that we had when McCall came on Strootman and Everplay. So he's fucked us more than anybody has fucked us in our recent history. That's my personal opinion, and he deserves to be fucking slated for that.
All right, well, we'll see what happens with Garcia. I think we're just about to end our podcast, just under the hour. So we have talked a little bit about PSG throughout the podcast here and there. Before we leave, can I just get your prediction on the score? So just to remind the listeners, we're playing PSG at home next Sunday. Payet is going to be back for this game. we shouldn't have any notable suspensions.
Gonzalez will be back as well.
Who?
Alvaro Gonzalez.
Oh yeah, Gonzalez,
Yeah.
Payet, Sanson will be back. Obviously, Thauvin is the one key missing man, but he may not be back until February. What would you say for the score?
We're away, aren't we? It's in Paris.
Oh yeah, it's away. Oh my god,
Yeah.
I got everything wrong here. Yeah, so we're playing away in the Stade de France next Sunday.
No, the Parc des Princes. It's not the Stade de France. Huh? Man,
I
they
said
wish
Parc
it
des
was the
Princes.
Stade de France.
That's what I said.
Sorry.
I'm not
I think you said the Parc de France, but anyway, you can edit that to save your
I
blushes. mate,
said
it's
Parc
fine.
de France, you shit.
I
Alright.
think part of me thinks we might get humped like 3-4-0, but then I could also maybe we could get a draw. You know, I think we could realistically like get a draw. You know, I don't think it's impossible either. So fuck it, I'm going to say 1-1. I'm going to be
1-1,
like
yeah.
really optimistic about this.
Right, Ben, what are you saying?
We grind out results all season, so you know we haven't lost that many games. We're difficult to beat, and we've got character. We can go down and back, yeah. So I'm gonna
agree. I agree with you, Steph. I think optimistically, I think that Villas-Boas might be able to, not in a Rudy Garcia way where he plays five at the back and comes out of nowhere with some really bizarre tactical choices, but I do think that I think we can cause them trouble if he sets the right system up, and if we try and take the game for them for a change, because too many times compared to teams like Lyon when they play them, they've not taken that many hidings from them in recent years, and that's because they try and play them at their own game, which is pressing high in midfield. And I'd rather see us, because I think we're all very frustrated when we lost against them towards the rear end of last season, when Germain equalised just after half time and then they scored a couple of goals, Mandanda got sent off. But we never, and even the home game last season, we never actually went for it. We always played with the handbrake on. So I don't care if we lose 3 or 4-0, as long as we give it a go. And if we create a couple of chances in the first half and maybe nick a goal, then maybe we can do a 1-1.
Right, so 1-1. So
I still think we'll lose.
Two of our speakers are saying a draw. So I'll carry on
very
this.
optimistic though. Very optimistic.
I'll carry on this optimistic view by predicting a very close game with Marseille losing 3-0. I think I'm not buying into the AVB hype at all. You
How
guys know
could
how I
you
feel
do
about
that?
it.
going on
that you're
about him since the
optimistic?
summer, how much you hate him. Like, why you hate him so much? He's doing all right, isn't he?
I don't hate him. I'm just saying, watch. We'll play pathetically. We never play well away from home at the Parc des Princes, and we'll.
But this is a new manager. It's not
Yeah,
fair.
exactly.
I think the approach would be different. He could come up with a surprise. He did pull off a couple of away wins with Spurs when he was at Spurs.
Okay, well.
They beat City. They beat City a couple of times when he was
We're
there.
not Garcia's losers anymore.
No, we're Marseille losers. We've always lost to PSG. We don't need Garcia to lose to PSG, mate.
Come on.
Well, we'll just have to find out next week. So we'll bring you back a podcast next Monday after the PSG game, after hopefully a draw or a good result or 3 points away from home for Marseille. But in the meantime, we'll let you go for today. It'll be the end of the podcast. Yeah, I guess so. We'll see you next weekend, guys. So, right. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Allez l'OM, come on.
Allez l'OM.
Let's try and beat this scum. Let's try and do something against the scum for a change.
All right.
For a
Cheers, guys.
change. Cheers. Bye.
Good night.